Welcome to this explainer. Today we're taking a completely different approach to the terrifying beasts of the ancient world. We're going to treat 10 of Greek mythology's absolute most famous monsters not just as, horrifying creatures meant to scare you in the dark, but as incredibly complex puzzles. Each of these legendary threats actually comes with a very specific set of defeat mechanics.
So instead of a dry history lesson, I want you to think of this as your personal mythological survival guide. We're going to break down exactly what it takes to survive the ancient world. All right, let's open up the manual and dive right into this.
Section 1. Tricking the Untouchables. When strength isn't enough. Now, with these monsters, just swinging a sword harder simply won't save you. You really need a clever loophole. Take Medusa, for example. The fundamental problem here is her face, right? Looking at her instantly turns you to stone. But she has one fatal flaw. Unlike her two Gorgon sisters, she's actually mortal. The hero Perseus exploits this beautifully. He uses a polished bronze shield as a mirror to track her reflection, never actually looking at her directly, and then decapitates her while she sleeps. But what's truly bizarre is the immediate aftermath. From her severed neck, a winged horse named Pegasus and a golden giant named Chrysaor literally pop out, having been trapped inside her the whole time.
Perseus actually keeps the severed head, which remarkably still retains its petrifying power. He uses it to turn sea monsters, kings, and even the Titan Atlas to stone before it permanently ends up affixed to the goddess Athena's shield. And this brilliantly illustrates how her terrifying legacy lived on in the real world. The Gorgonion, that specific painted design of Medusa's severed head, was used by real ancient Greek soldiers on their shields to ward off evil and protect them in actual combat.
Another monster you absolutely can't just overpower is the Cyclops, Polyphemus. When Odysseus and his men get trapped in the giant's cave, they can't just kill him, because only Polyphemus is strong enough to move the massive boulder blocking the exit. So, the clever loophole? Odysseus gets the giant incredibly drunk, blinds him with a sharpened stake, and tells him his name is Nobody. When the other Cyclops hear the screams and ask who's attacking, Polyphemus yells, "Nobody is hurting me." The other giants just shrug and go back to sleep. Odysseus and his men brilliantly escape by clinging to the undersides of the giant sheep. But in a massive display of ego, Odysseus yells out his real name from his ship to take credit. Polyphemus prays to his father, Poseidon, and man, that one moment of hubris costs Odysseus 10 extra agonizing years lost at sea.
Section 2. Brute Force and Battle Mechanics. The hack and slash with a twist.
These next encounters require immense physical power combined with very specific mechanical combat strategies. The Hydra is basically the ultimate hack-and-slash nightmare. You cut off one head, and two grow back in its place. Hercules watches this terrifying math happen in real time before figuring out the rhythm. He cuts, and his nephew Iolaus immediately burns the stump with fire to cauterize the wound, totally stopping the regrowth. Finally, he buries the single, completely immortal head under a massive rock. It's an exhausting, flawless execution of battle mechanics. However, his cousin Eurystheus, the judge of the labors, unfairly disqualifies the kill from his record simply because his nephew helped with the fire. Talk about a tough crowd.
Now consider this pretty grim number. 14. That is the exact number of young people, 7 boys and 7 girls, that Athens was forced to send as a tribute to Crete every 9 years. They were thrown into a labyrinth to be hunted by the Minotaur, a creature with a man's body and a bull's head. The hero Theseus volunteers to be one of those 14. But he doesn't just use his fists, he uses a ball of thread given to him by Princess Ariadne. He unspools it to navigate this impossibly dark, confusing structure, kills the beast with his bare hands, and follows the thread right back out, permanently stopping this horrific tribute. And what's wild is that the Greeks associated this labyrinth with a real-world address, the heavily cordoned palace ruins of Knossos on Crete, a place where tourists literally still get lost today.
Our next mechanical fight involves the Chimera. This thing is a fire-breathing lion with a goat growing out of its back and a serpent for a tail. Getting close is the main problem because of the intense heat. The hero Bellerophon solves this by taming Pegasus, granting him the ultimate aerial advantage. But his weapon is the true stroke of genius, a spear tipped with a lump of lead. Bellerophon drives the spear low into the beast's mouth, allowing the Chimera's own fiery breath to melt the lead, sending molten metal straight down its throat. He literally uses the monster's own weapon against it to cook it from the inside out.
What's truly fascinating here is the legacy of that creature. The name Chimera didn't just stay stuck in mythology. Today, it survives as an official, working scientific term in biology. An organism that carries 2 completely different sets of DNA, which actually happens in real life, even in humans, is literally called a chimera. So the ancient monster absolutely lives on in modern laboratories.
Section 3.
Traps and riddles, mind over matter.
Now we're moving on to monsters that target your intellect. Fail the puzzle, and you don't survive. Look at the Sphinx. This creature, head of a woman, body of a lion, wings of an eagle, had the entire city of Thebes under a deadly siege, killing every single traveler who couldn't answer her riddle. Oedipus finally lifts the siege by solving her famous riddle about the ages of life. He realizes the answer is a human being, who crawls on 4 legs as a baby in the morning, walks upright on 2 as an adult at noon, and uses a can as a 3rd leg in the evening of old age. Defeated, the Sphinx throws herself off a cliff. Oedipus is crowned king and given the widowed queen Jocasta as his wife, but here is the brutal, tragic irony. Because he solved this riddle, he unknowingly marries his own mother. The crown, the glory, and the ultimate tragedy all stem from this single puzzle solved in one afternoon.
Then we have the Sirens. Their song isn't just, pretty music, it's a highly personalized weapon that promises you whatever knowledge you desire most. For Odysseus, it was the secrets of the Trojan War and the future. To survive this, he plugs his crew's ears with beeswax and has them tie him tightly to the ship's mast, leaving his own ears open. He screams and begs to be untied as they pass, but the crew just keeps rowing. Because he successfully hears the song and lives, he fulfills a strange, fatal prophecy. The very act of a mortal surviving the Sirens literally strips them of their power and kills them.
But they didn't disappear entirely. Actually, if you grabbed a coffee this morning, you might have been looking right at one. In a surprising pop culture twist, the 2-tailed creature staring back at you on the Starbucks logo is actually a siren, pulled straight from a later medieval version of this exact legend. Yep, they are still luring us in.
Section 4. The inevitable tolls. Pay the price to pass.
Sometimes a clean victory just isn't possible, and surviving means accepting a heavy, inevitable loss. When Odysseus sails through a narrow strait, he faces Scylla, a horrifying monster with 6 heads on long, stretching necks hidden high up on a cliff face. The witch Circe gives him a brutal piece of advice: do not stop to fight. If you slow down, you lose the whole ship. Odysseus arms himself anyway, but he looks the wrong way. 6 heads sweep down and exactly 6 men are taken. He has to silently listen to them scream his name as they are lifted into the air. And to add a bizarre, eerie detail to this total nightmare, Scylla's voice doesn't sound like a roaring dragon. She's described as having the yelp of a small puppy. 6 men lost to a monster that barks like a dog.
Now you might be wondering, what kind of elaborate, deadly trap is needed to bypass Cerberus? This is the legendary 3-headed hound that guards the underworld. His job isn't to keep the living out. His job is to make sure the dead never, ever leave. So how do you beat the ultimate guard dog of hell?
Hilariously, the answer is that he's actually kind of a pushover, provided you come prepared. Nobody storms past Cerberus with a drawn sword and a blaze of glory. Orpheus just plays some nice music on his lyre, and the terrifying dog falls fast asleep. Aeneas has his guide toss the dog some honey cakes laced with a sedative, and he just passes out. And Hercules, for his final labor, he just grabs the dog with overwhelming barehanded strength, drags him up to the surface to prove a point, and then returns him. Music, drugged baked goods, or just raw, unadulterated muscle, that is literally all it takes.
Section 5. The final boss. God-tier threats.
Every monster we've discussed so far was a problem designed for mortal heroes. But this last monster was a direct threat to the king of the gods himself. Meet Typhon. Just listen to these terrifying stats. This isn't just a beast, this is a roaring, hissing, earth-shattering nightmare. His upper body reaches the stars. His arms span the horizon from east to west. His lower body is made of coiling serpents, and 100 fire-breathing snakeheads sprout right from his shoulders. When Typhon charges Mount Olympus, he is so horrifying that most of the mighty Greek gods literally flee to Egypt and hide in animal disguises. Only Zeus stands his ground. It's a brutal fight. At one point, Typhon physically tears the sinews right out of Zeus's hands and feet, leaving the god completely helpless until he's healed. Eventually, Zeus chases Typhon across the sky with thunderbolts and brutally pins him permanently underneath Mount Etna in Sicily, establishing the final, lasting order of the world.
And Typhon's presence is actually still felt today. The ancient Greeks explained the violent, real-world earthquakes and volcanic eruptions of Mount Etna as Typhon endlessly struggling beneath the rock. Even more incredibly, as the ancient father of storm winds, his terrifying power literally shapes how we speak. The modern English word typhoon, used to describe massive, destructive oceanic storms, derives directly from his name.
So, as we wrap up this explainer and reflect on these incredible mechanics of survival, the mirrors, the riddles, the tragic sacrifices, and the molten lead,
I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. If a monster like Typhon can make the immortal gods run away in absolute terror, what does it say about the incredible willpower, intellect, and courage of the fragile human heroes who willingly stepped into the dark to face the rest of these nightmares?